Hey everybody. I was just thinking about why do we go through life with pain? And I was thinking about like how the other day, the way I see it is half of life is pain. So it's unavoidable. It's like inescapable. But navigating it or processing like painful going through cycles of grief or something like that is completely different than living life like lugging this pain around as like these like open wounds or this like armor or whatever. And it's like that's the big thing with being an addict too. That's kind of a blessing in a way. It's a double-edged sword for sure, because in a way it's almost a blessing because it's really easy to see from a mile away that that you have pain that has manifested into like your whole entire life, and so it's impossible to ignore. People that are really good, like I've talked about, people who are like narcissists or maybe have imposter syndrome deep down, or whatever. They have external success in their lives, but maybe internally those are the type of people who it's like, oh, they had everything, or they seem like the perfect neighbor, and they had this, that, and the other, and then one day it turns out like they have killed themselves, or they're dead by their own hand, or some like a family massacre, or like the Reiners. But the son had all these problems. But I'm saying, like, people who have money from the outside, you never know like what's going on behind closed doors. And like the ultimate closed door is our own minds and hearts and psyches. And so as an addict, you are like a walking expression of all of your internal pain and perceived unworthiness. And so in a way, it's almost a blessing because it's easier to address because it can't be swept under the rug. It's a double-edged sword because, on the other hand, it can't be swept under the rug. Your life is in shambles. You are a walking wound, but it's gone this far. So it's definitely like a huge hill to climb, sometimes seemingly on a daily basis. But like I've talked about before, I have been sober since 2018, fully since 2019, and I've changed my life. But at this moment in my life, it's really like a lot of things are changing and have been changing for some time. And I find myself still really having to fight for my dignity, in the sense it still feels like such a temptation sometimes to just submit to what is comfortable, what is known, submit to less than what I deserve, because there's always a part of me that's like, well, it's better than nothing. It's better than being alone, the devil, right? So it seems like that's a constant battle. And it's really, I didn't think once I was able to beat my addiction and deal with a lot of my mental health issues and a lot of my codependency issues and like love addiction, or however you want to word it, anxious attachment style. There's all these fucking labels, like infinite labels. I thought once I was able to kind of get a grasp on that and make all these major changes, that I don't know, I would have kind of like the worst would be behind me. And it is it, but it's just it's different kind of battle, because it's constantly like, what are you going to process? What are you going to acknowledge? And what are you going to carry around and just have it become like this festering trauma, And that's what I think trauma is. It's pain that we haven't processed. All trauma is capital, but pain doesn't have to be. And with addiction, and yeah, it's like I always think of drugs or alcohol, but really it can be like just addicted to all of the options, where it's like, man, it's going to be shitty. It's going to be like a scroll of negatives and downsides, but it's just going to be comfortable enough to where you're going to have to like really fight not to settle for less than what you deserve, just because maybe reaching for something more is really scary and daunting. Um, but anyway, so I'm trying to kind of like walk that path and be aware of it, that that like all this trauma that addicts carry, and that is why people abuse whatever, or they are addicted to whatever situation like they are in, that they cannot quit even though it is to their detriment and keeping them from having the life um, that maybe they are meant to have, or that could be like really reaching for like the stars or whatever, just why, like settling for all like these numbing agents, both literal, like a substance, or even more like philosophical, like a state of being or whatever. Like the reason we settle is because of pain that we cannot process, that we don't feel like able to or worthy of processing. That is trauma. Why do we carry around trauma instead of processing it as we do with normal pain, or as is done with a lot of people that go through life and just have the normal ebbs and flows and victories and losses of life? I think that is that feeling of unworthiness. It's just like, what am I worth? And it's tricky because we define that for ourselves, and that definition is up to us. But the definition that we settle on, or that we choose, that's going to be the way it is. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so for me, it's like, and that's something else. It's always been annoying that it just seems like almost kind of sinister, because it's incorrect. It's like bad information. Oh my gosh, here's Mazzy again, to say like the trauma is because of the external source. Like it's going to be like your childhood, your messed up childhood, your mental illness, your whatever is diagnostically messed up within your mind. Or it's going to be like some trauma. But it's all trauma. That's what I'm saying. But it's all like it's very sneaky that these reasons for why we are the way we are all external, when in reality the reasons are internal. Because I know it ruffles some feathers, but there are people who have trauma every day, major childhood trauma, major mental illness every day, and who don't end up like on a street corner, out of their mind on drugs, who don't end up with their lives completely monopolized by their addiction. So what is it about the addict? It's not the damn external factors, the past, that is like, for all intents and purposes, like a bad dream. It's the past. It's over and done with. And if it's something that happened to you, it is for damn sure not your fault. And I know it can feel that way. I know, you know, I didn't have a bad childhood at all, but I do have past traumas from people, abusing me and taking like sexual assaults and stuff. So I've had things happen that have nothing to do with me. So I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that it's not even though we internalize the wrongs that are inflicted upon us, a lot of times it's not the external things that have happened. it's how we react to them. There is like agency in that. And the answer, like with treatment and just like the perspective of addiction, even like BetterHelp. And I've never gone to BetterHelp, but I've gone to a lot of therapy over, a lot of different formats over many years. And I have a handful of, diagnosed mental slash personality illnesses and disorders. Okay. So I'm not a novice. And I've said it before, my experience, and maybe just coincidentally, the experience of everyone I know that has sought talk therapy, it's never been like talk therapy. It's always been a stepping stone on the way to psychiatry. And it's not been about actually like managing or helping tools or anything like that. I would love to be able to go to like a Jungian psychologist at some point in the future. But for most people, certainly in West Virginia, certainly in Southern West Virginia, but a lot of people that just don't have the resources of a major city, or, the ability to like pay out of pocket and really have like options that financial abundance and money can afford you. It's just, you have to work with what you have, and what you have is a one-way ticket to being their type of addict that just like numbs the external trauma that you are lugging around, instead of helping you actually acknowledge the pain, acknowledge that trauma, which is your pain that you are lugging around, and being able to release it. That's the first thing, like acknowledging it, Yeah, this happened, but like really ask yourself, what does it have to do with me? What does some injustice that was done upon me have to do with me? It's not a shortcoming of myself. My mind is perhaps, just maybe hypothetically, not a shortcoming. You know, um, just like ask yourself that, what does it have to do with you? These things that have happened, what is stopping you from being dictated by the wounds and the scars and just the fucked upness of your past and this shitty life? And it really comes down to, like I said, no, a lot of times we're not told to do that. We just have to figure it out for ourselves. We're told to do everything but that, but to really anything other than acknowledge it. But when you do acknowledge it, just to go deeper, it's always internally. Like you are like the blockage of your success or change. Or, it's up to you to stop going down this like dead end street that is like absolute death with tears in your eyes. We're all going to die, but damn, using is like fun. Escapism is fun at the beginning and it works. And that's at first, you know, but we know it doesn't at the end of the day. And if you're going to be miserable, then why not try to be something closer to able to live within yourself without wanting to crawl out of your skin like every waking moment. And it comes down to like really just acknowledging your worth, that you are worth more than just dying sad and like, anonymously. I mean, if life doesn't matter, then why not try? I've said that. That's like what I tell myself. And I have to like reiterate it to myself on a daily basis. If we get to pick our own parameters and make our success and or failures, then why not try? Why put so much stock into, meeting these goals at this time or whatever? Why not have a little bit of peace of mind? And if it's the opposite, then why not have a little bit of peace of mind either way? But I don't know. I just hate the way the whole system is really not, it doesn't seem to be set up to actually help people like accept, just look at your pain, acknowledge it. That's what else can you do other than acknowledge it and be like, yeah. And just because these horrible things have happened and these horrible things are happening now, or this is the way it's been forever, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean it has to be that way for like 1 second longer. It's amazing, like just what acknowledging your pain and your trauma with yourself, and just kind of like standing in that for a second and saying, hey, I can choose something differently. I can think something differently. How far that will take you. It's kind of a beautiful thing when it's when you really do it. So that's my 2 cents of rambling for the night. Take it easy.